All right. Welcome to another episode of Raleigh Game Studios Vlog. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jeff.
And today we are going to be talking about 5 games that we are each thankful for. Stay tuned and watch. It's going to be a big one. Good one? Tasty one. I don't know. One of those things.
Tasty.
Just keep watching.
So today we are going to be talking about our top 5 favorite games. I think it's going to be nostalgic. We'll probably hit some of the same genres that a lot of you people out there watching like. So just to start with, I guess we should talk about how we decided upon these games and ranked them as our top 5. So Chris, what went into your decision?
So for my top 5, I ranked these chronologically, and they were based off of when I look back at the 30 years of game playing that I have under my belt. The games that I remember fondly, they stood out for one reason or another at some point in my life. Sentimental value almost in a way that I could play no matter what. Play them over and over again.
And it's funny because we didn't talk about this at all before we started building really. That's a lot of what went into my decision as well. I looked at games that I just thought were amazing when I started playing them as a kid or a teenager or a young adult, and then games that I just kept coming back to. Would consistently play on, like, if not a yearly basis, every few years. And then another metric I found, which will be kind of funny when we talk about it, is I looked at in particular games that I bought on like more than 2 systems throughout their lifespan. And just kind of looking back and being like, I didn't realize I liked this game that much, but clearly I did, because it's like a staple of my library. So that's kind of how I came to my conclusions. What's number 1?
First one we're going to talk about. So the first one, I think I probably, in our introduction, I talked about how I watched my older brothers play video games a lot. And so one of the first games that I actually remember playing was a River City Ransom. And so it's a very straightforward beat 'em up side scroller, kind of like Double Dragon, but some role playing elements to it. So you didn't necessarily level up, but you get money, and then you could buy new moves and power ups and things like that.
I like beating people up for money in games.
It was one of the first games where I played and I kind of envisioned myself being the protagonist in the game, where your buddy, your girlfriends get abducted from by the rival schools gang, and
wow, that's hardcore.
Yeah, you have to go break them out or find them, and so you're basically going through, and you have all, you've got to go through all the turfs to get to your girlfriends. Still today, it's one of my favorite games to play. And even more recently, I think one of the studio that was involved in making it is still putting out similar games. It's like this long-standing series, and they did River City Girls, which basically it was the same concept, but they subverted the storyline a little bit, where it's your boyfriend's kidnapped, and you got to break them out, but hilarity ensues from there, because it's not, reality isn't as it seems. So it was a fun game, and still there was a lot of references to the original, or at least original to me, River City Ransom, and I enjoyed playing that too. So if you have a chance to pick it up, it's an enjoyable like 10 to 15 hours. Not a long game, but it's fun.
Mine would have to be, and I've talked about it before, so I feel like I'm cheating, but it's the honest truth. Super Castlevania 4, man, it's just such a good game. I I I liked spooky stuff as a kid. I was super into vampires. That was just my thing. Um, and so here's this game that's like everything else on the Super Nintendo is super colorful and happy and like, jump on this like cloud as Mickey Mouse and do the thing. But here's this game that's like dark, has a fantastic soundtrack, one of the best soundtracks on SNES, and I will probably fight someone over that. And and it's just got this. It manages to be a horror game when you didn't have enough pixels to really, portray anything that wasn't completely cartoonish. But it really pushed the limits of the system at the time,
Yeah.
especially before they started releasing games like Donkey Kong that were more um, kind of the next bump in that generation, a whole level of mobility that you didn't see on a lot of SNES games at the time. So, yeah, I mean, I've played that game so many times. I'm probably gonna play it again in the new year just because it's been about a year since I bought my little Super Nintendo Classic thing. So yeah, Castlevania is a great game.
Next game on the list is the Super Nintendo era too. It's but the one that I definitely enjoyed the most was and the reason I picked it is Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Came towards the end of the Super Nintendo's
Yeah, it did.
life cycle, and but it was such a fun story. It was your Mario characters that you come to love over the course of from the Nintendo, even all the games that came out for the Super Nintendo, and then they even introduced a couple of new characters with Gino and Mallow, I believe, were the if I remember right, and these are some of the most memorable characters too. And I hate that I've never seen them in any other game since then, but the whole game was just fun, and it was kind of funny to see Bowser join up with Mario to take back his castle and just going through and collecting the stars, beating up these weird boss characters that were unleashed on the realm, which you see that trend continue in even the Paper Mario games of today. And I don't know, it was fun. I thought it was a good mixture of Nintendo's characters with Square's ability to make role-playing games, and that's why it's the second one on my list.
My next one it was actually from the 64 N64 era, and it was I almost said Mario. It was The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. I mean, I think I was probably about 13 when this game came out, and I didn't really play it until later.
Yeah, I mean, we would have been in middle school.
Yeah. It was like 97 or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So like we finally got an N64, but they'd probably been around for a couple of years. But we finally wore my parents down, and that was one of the first games we got. We played a lot of that game, and it was so just cool to play something in 3D that was as close to an action RPG as you could get at the time. And it's the classic action RPG, I think, for that system. So, I mean, like just going into this world and having the ability to unlock all this stuff as you go, and for a young mind, I mean, it's kind of challenging, I think. I think I rented like a Zelda game when I was like 9, and went the whole weekend without really knowing what the heck to do, because I just couldn't, like, I didn't understand that it was a puzzle and you had to unlock parts of the map and stuff. I just couldn't. So this was a good time for that, because I could understand it and could kind of, work through it. So super fun. At the time, amazing graphics. I've bought it on like 3 different systems. I think it's on my Switch now. So
Yeah,
I love that game.
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
The next game for me, I know this is going to be a little bit of cliched, but I'm going to have to go with Final Fantasy VII. I remember when that game came out and I was blown away. I wouldn't say necessarily by the graphics, but just blown away by the whole world that Square created with that game. It was just, to me, amazing to see this game. And even though the characters, when I've played it several times since then, even as an adult, and the characters, even though they're a little bit melodramatic, it still brings back that magical feeling that I had when I played it the very first time. And I played that game so much, hours and hours and hours, and I probably played it at least once a year for probably 3 or 4 years straight, just going back and playing it. Yeah, and it's still, to me, I played it earlier this year too, and it's, of course, for me, that's one of the games that I've probably bought 4, 5, 6 times. I bought it for the Switch, so I played it on that when I bought the Switch, and still a great game. I love playing it, coming back to it, and just so fun.
Hey, and the rebuild, I think they're calling it rebuild. I don't remember. That might be Evangelion. I don't know. But the remake that they did has a lot of new life in it too. I mean, it's if you haven't played it, I do recommend it, because it's getting twisty.
Yeah, and you know what? It is one of those games that I don't have a PlayStation, so I'm kind of upset that I can't play it because it's not on Xbox and it's not on PC.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Okay, completely, it's a jump, but we're in the PlayStation era. We're in PlayStation 2 GameCube kind of realm with Resident Evil 4. So specifically Resident Evil 4. I love Resident Evil, and that game is a genre. I mean, that was like a genre builder, but specifically I looked in Resident Evil 4 is the game that I own on I think at least 4 systems. I had it on PS2, I had it on PS3, I had it on my Wii, and I think I'm trying to think what else we had it on. Oh yeah, I have it on the PS4 as well. So 3 different generations of PlayStations, and then randomly on the Wii.
And then if you want to, you can get it on the Switch too.
Yeah. There's something about it where it just, they got everything in their concept like just right, and managed to make something that is still survival horror, but it crosses over with kind of like a platforming adventure format really well. I mean, it's not a true platforming game, but like you're moving around a lot more, and you don't have that like tank control,
right?
So I just really like the way they nailed the controls. Created a customization system. The guns. It's not like super intense, but like you can definitely kind of do more than you could in previous games. And I just love hearing people yell at me in Spanish. That's fun. 4.
So for number 4 for me, favorite game that Square has put out, and it's Xenogears. To me, that game, and I hate that. Um, I, you can't. It's one of those games. I think it was on they put it on the PlayStation Store to get, but like no physical versions of it since then. So no remasters, no remakes. And it's just what it's hard to put a finger on just one thing that I love about that game. But I remember just playing through it, and it was probably one of the first games where I'd play and just had to really get all of the lore of the world. I remember one playthrough, I took notes on all the factions and all the characters and some of the different psychological concepts. And this was probably before Wikipedia made it so much easier to do research. And then I wrote down concepts from the game after going and getting on message boards to talk about it, and they talk about things, and I'd look up all these different concepts that they had in the game, and just made me really want to learn more about those concepts that they had, and I loved it. It even to this day, and I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, well the first disc is really good, and then the second disc they kind of ran out of budget, and it's just it's a visual novel at that point, and I don't even care. It was so fun to play. Like, I enjoyed it so much, and I like that game even more than Final Fantasy VII. So
okay, that's a bold statement.
I know, fanboys, come at me. What up?
Yeah. Well, speaking of RPGs, getting into, I don't know how long this has been in. I guess it was on the PlayStation 3. Is how I know it, and I guess the Xbox 360. Skyrim. Skyrim is like Jen and my. It's our winter game. So like as soon as it gets cold, it's usually post Christmas. But as soon as it starts getting like really consistently cold, we used to live in Boone, so we'd actually have snow. And there's just something, man, about like playing Skyrim while there's actually snow outside that just make you hear that like the music inside the whatever building you're in. That just sounds very just kind of cozy and calming. And you can literally like cook stuff in game. Like it's just, man, it's so good. My character Katniss Evermean has lived on my PlayStation 3, and then in Japan we had a PlayStation 3, and then now we have a PS4, and like she's made the jump every time, either with like transferring save data or just like I'll just make her again, but she's always there. Mm-hmm. Great. Number 5.
All right, well, I graduated college, and as a graduation gift, I bought myself a PlayStation 3. And that was mostly because while I was in college, I actually stopped playing video games for a while just because I didn't have time or money, so I didn't really play a whole lot of video games. So I did miss out, like, the PlayStation, the end of the PlayStation 2 era, the Xbox era. I missed out on a lot of games during that time. But when I graduated, I bought a PlayStation 3, and I bought 2 games. 2 games that one of them I knew something about a little bit, and the other one I thought had cool cover art. So I went home and I hooked it up. Second game I played, which I bought, knew nothing about, bought completely based off of the cover art of the game, was Fallout 3. And I was hooked on that game from the time it started up. I was drawn in, starting off as, the little baby lone wanderer, wandering around learning as their kind of intro stage, and then playing through the initial level. And I don't know, I can't remember playing a game similar to that because I didn't really play a lot of first-person type games until that point. So it was a relatively new experience for me. And then to play something that had the RPG element was fun. The being able to choose your different dialogue was fun to me. And then, you know, you get through your introductory level and you step out into the vault to the Capital Wasteland, and it's just barren and desolate and looks so, I don't know, it's almost indescribable, but it had that feeling where I just can't believe stepping out into the vault, how different the environment was, and I was hooked. I think I made my girlfriend at the time so mad because I would stay up late every single night playing that game for a week straight. I'd get off work and I'd just play until the wee hours of the morning. And I've played that game so many times since then. That's probably one of my favorites. And so, as I was saying, I'm since then I've been a huge Bethesda Game Studios fanboy.
Yeah. So. Same kind of situation. For me, as Skyrim, at least how I was introduced to it, which is mooching off of my friends. They're like, "Oh yeah, you played Dark Souls?" And I'm like, "What is it?" And and that's how I started playing Dark Souls, because they one of my roommates at the time just kind of showed it to me on his PS3, and like the atmosphere is just perfect. It was kind of almost like visiting Castlevania again, and it's a more of a fantasy realm. It's like a dark fantasy. It's not quite as horror based, but it is, like, there's tons of horror in the game anyway, because it's essentially based on the manga and anime Berserk. It's a major influence for it. It's unfair to say it's based on it. It's just a major influence. But just something about this like beautiful, desolate world is just so cool to me, that you're kind of roaming around and just like sort of figuring out what's happened. But all those drop items and just these little bits of lore show up that you're just never gonna see. It's not gonna get spoon fed to you. You have to be kind of looking for it. And I think that's what's appealing about the whole game, is nothing is spoon fed to you. It's just kind of like, here you go, you died, start over again. Very high customizable combat. Like, I think one of the things I liked the most was making a character and being able to feel like I feel like I'm actually there doing those things, because it's just such a smooth combat system. So I could go on and on all day about Dark Souls and its successors, which are all just fantastic games. But that was the first, so it gets it gets credit for being the first Dark Souls, even if Demon Souls came first, and that's a whole other thing that I never got into. But I might play the remake on PS5 one year when I actually get a PS5. We'll see.
That was the 5 games that we're thankful for. Basically our 5 favorite games. Not the 5 best games of all time. Not the 5 greatest games ever made. Just our 5 favorite games that we are thankful for. And there are so many other great games out there. Lots of great games that are coming up that we want to play. Lots of great games that we haven't had a chance to play yet, that we're going to play. Great time to be alive.
It is. Yeah, there's this one studio, Raleigh Game Studio. I feel like they're going to be big, so looking forward to see their stuff.
Yeah, they're one to watch for. 2021.
Yeah, that's right.
Pay attention. So we will. That's all we have for today. Thanks for watching another Raleigh Game Studios vlog. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jeff.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, or hope you had a happy Thanksgiving by the time this comes out. Can't promise.
We'll see.
We'll see. But chat next time.
Bye.
Bye.